Today we're excited to have the incredible Roni Ben-Hur with us, a world-renowned jazz guitarist, recording artist, and educator. Celebrated for his golden tone, lyrical compositions, and mastery of both jazz and Brazilian music, he has earned praise from both the New York Times and Jazz Times for his captivating artistry. With over a dozen albums and decades of performing alongside legends like Barry Harris and George Cables, his contributions to jazz are nothing short of extraordinary. Beyond the music, he spent over 40 years as a beloved educator, leading the jazz program at New York's Kaufman Music Center for 30 years and hosting international jazz camps. So get ready for an inspiring conversation with Roni about his creative journey and passion for storytelling through music. So, Roni, happy Thursday. Good to see you. Thanks for joining
Happy
me.
Thursday. Good to be here and with your listeners. Thank you.
So, Roni, the first thing I wanted to talk to you about was the jazz camps you host in Vermont, I believe it is. There's a lot of
I
musicians out
do,
there. What was it? Yeah.
yeah, I do few locations.
Okay. Okay.
There's the one in Vermont, there's the one in the south of France, and there's one in Havana.
So all over the world, really.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
So
And we'll expand. I plan to expand.
how did the first one start? Like, where did the ideas come from? How did you
Mhm.
conceptualize getting this to life?
The first one, I think it was in 2001 or 2002, and was one of my students said, "Why don't you start a jazz camp?" I said, "That's a good idea." And through the help of some of my students are all adults, we found an organic farm in Paterson, New York, which is like an hour and a half from the city. So they gave us a barn. It's a brand new barn that they built with a great kitchen. And we stayed on the ground. It was a small group. We had access to the farm, so we would make dinners together every night. And we'll go pick out the vegetables and the greens from the garden and then cook. Everybody would show off their artistry of cooking. We'll spend a week together. So it started like that. It started in Paterson, New York, and then I found a location in the south of France that we've done that. It's that place for a few years. Then I moved to the Adirondacks, to a place in the Adirondacks, and then to Vermont. So the camps have different characteristics. The one I do in the south of France it's a beautiful location. It's a manor, it's an estate from the 1600s. And I collaborate with a chef from over there. She's a great cook. So you stay in this amazing, beautiful, like it converted to like a five-star guest house with a
Wow.
pool surrounded by olive grove, beautiful grounds to be in. You eat amazing food cooked by Edith, my friend who's the chef, and then we play music. It's a small group. People come with their companions, husband, wife, or friends, and then every day we have about 5 hours of playing, and then we go on excursions, whether it is kayaking down the river, or going to markets, bike rides to the villages, beautiful places to see. There's a lot to see over there. And then in Vermont, it's very intensive. It's a large faculty, and basically from 9 in the morning till midnight, you play music. You play in ensembles, then you have master classes, then you play in a jam session, you see shows every night. And that's kind of like, even though we're in a beautiful location in Burlington, Vermont, and there's the lake over there and lots of places to see, we are really kind of sequestered playing music. You are free to go and do what you wish, but there's so much to offer musically. The people stay, and it's wonderful. It creates a great community. Right from the get-go, you'll see everybody dancing, jamming, playing. It creates a very close friendship that everybody leaves feeling they met so many new people that are their friends. And then in Havana, it's also intensive musically, but with the addition of excursions. So you come with your partner if you like, and every day we have 6 hours of music with Cuban musicians. The teachers there are all Cuban from Havana, some of the top musicians in Havana, and we are learning Cuban music, traditional Cuban music, and we collaborate with a school of children over there, which they perform with us at the end. And every day we also go on excursions to see Havana, to see the area, but also absorb the culture, the dance, the music that is everywhere over there. So it's a music, culture, sightseeing, community, all of that put together.
Wow. I mean, that's remarkable. So many people have these ideas, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to start my own program there, but you brought it to life, and this is a major, there's so much scheduling that goes into it and logistics. I'm sure, that
That's
are you handling all those logistical things, or do you have like a team working with
yes,
you?
yes. Well, I have people who work with me that I hire to help me, that are connections. So in Havana, my friend Rui Lopez Nusa was a great drummer. He organizes the faculty, and he got us this amazing group of people. So I don't have to ask each teacher; he does that for me. And I have a friend over there, Ramon, who's a tour guide, and he helps us organize the trips. But I have to, get everybody and get the hotel, and we rent the bus and make the scheduling and all of that.
It's, well,
In
you're
between
doing something
practicing, I have to
artistic
go.
and it's beautiful, but I'm sure with, even though you're doing something beautiful, there are, because of all the logistics that come with it, there is some added stress to it. So, I mean,
Yes, but yeah, I'm sorry. Everybody's so nice,
right.
All the people who come, they come with the intent of just having a great time with the music, and we are very true to the music. I think that's like the common denominator amongst all of them is that we really are truthful to the music. There's no BS. Try to make the music as beautiful as possible and the teaching as sincere as possible. So the people who come see that, and they're not demanding, they're not needy, they're not acting like, well, you said at 3 o'clock this is going to happen. It's already 3:15. Not to say that that's going on, but it could.
Wow.
So there isn't that stress of like, oh, I have to serve my clients. We really end up feeling like we're a group of friends traveling together, doing things together.
That's great. I mean, among that, you do so many, things musically, and I know you have a relationship with the great Sheila Jordan, and in fact, there's a new record coming out, I think, right? With you and
Yes,
RBS and
yes.
Sheila. Can you tell me
Oh,
about that record?
right. Sure, it's coming out on February 14th of 2025. So where we are now, it's another week and a half. And it's an album we recorded about 2 years ago during the pandemic. And we recorded it together in Harvey S's apartment. He was the engineer in a room, and we were just sitting right next to each other. There was no correcting, there was no punching in. It's what you hear is what you get is what you hear. And it was an amazing experience to be next to her. She's so true, so sincere, with her music. She put so much out to just sing that music. Her sacrifice was enormous. What she lived through, the racial history of this country. Her daughter is from a mixed marriage, so she had to experience that. So many friends were black musicians, so she would get beaten up by cops that would see her with that. I mean, you can see the story of America through her eyes. And that's something to be said. I think, not to get too political, but there were some women throughout the history of jazz who were very brave to hang out with jazz musicians who at that time were mostly African. And these white women who, I mean, Sheila is half native, half white, but she looks white. When they hung out with the musicians, they risked their lives. The Baronet Panonica and other people. Somebody has to write a book about these heroines who put, their integrity and their love for the people and the music ahead of their safety and how they were treated. So, to go back to music, the album is coming out. It's called Portrait now because she made an album in 1962 called Portrait of Sheila on Blue Note with Barry Galbraith. So the idea is, and again with guitar, but now, and it's beautiful. I'm very happy with it, very
How did you
proud.
guys meet, you and Sheila?
Well, we met through the scene once or twice, But then Harvey suggested to her that we play together. And she was very happy to do that. And once we did, I remember going to her to a rehearsal the first time. We had a gig coming up, so we went to her apartment, and she hardly knew me. She didn't really, she heard about me, so she was a little tough, you know. And we played, she sang a song, and I played, and she goes, "Huh, you sound good." And then she was my best friend. But we became very close friends, you know, personally. It was great chemistry. So through Harvey, I got to start working with her. And then since then, we've done a lot together.
Yeah, I mean, it's and you said it's a friendship, which is definitely I really like the idea of that love and a family when you're with your bandmates. And but there is also that other side. You hear people like Malice on stage and they like to
Mm.
battle and it's like a boxing match. So there are those two components. But I think it's beautiful when you have those relationships. The music
Yeah.
just comes alive.
You know, I grew up musically with Barry Harris here in New York, and he really was about that. You know, love was first.
Love.
Everything he did was through love, and was never show off. He never played to razzle dazzle you, you know, and he never acted in a competitive manner on the bandstand, and always gave you room, you know, and always frowned when you're not sincere. If your playing is show off or it's not sincere, it will be like, hmm. And when you see that look, you say, oh, you know. So I think I was inspired by that his choices were all based on that. The beauty of the music, in a way that we are dedicated to that. We've dedicated our lives to bring music to make it as most beautiful as possible. And it is the most beautiful as possible when love is involved, especially when you play with a group of people, when you're not putting yourself first, you know. So that was a great lesson from him and the other people that I play with from that generation.
Yeah, I mean, when you play with Barry Harris, you're talking about one of the pioneers of this music in a sense. And
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure you think about him and those other figures, very greatly. When did you like know that jazz was going to be your, genre that you were primarily performing? Because I'm sure other things came before that. You're not just right away like, oh, I'm going to be a jazz guitarist the second I start playing guitar.
Right. When I was 17, when I was 17, I always gravitated to music. You know, I didn't realize I wanted to be a musician. You know how they say you don't pick music, music picks you, you know.
Yes.
And life sort of kind of like kept me always with the music, but I think it was because I was drawn to it. And before I played jazz, you know, I was into Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin. I was born 1962, so in the 70s, my teen years, that was big. Deep Purple, you know,
Oh,
and I
my
love.
father's a huge Deep Purple fan. That's what I grew up listening to.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard Deep Purple since 1980, maybe. You know,
He
I
took me
should
to see
listen
them
to.
in I think around 2000 in the early 2000s. But I always he's a bass player, an amateur. I always joke around with him. I say his dream was to be the bass player for Deep Purple, and we have this
Yeah,
inside joke.
that's funny. Yes,
But
that's
I love how
funny.
you say Deep Purple because so many people say the Beatles and Zen, but you said Deep Purple, and that's the first time I've heard that on the podcast. That's great.
Oh wow. Yeah. Santana too. When I was 12, I heard the Beatles for the first time, and remember we had these two albums. You know, I had my bar mitzvah, and all the money I got it from it, I bought a stereo, and that was like what I wanted to do, to listen to records. And you know, and that time also Leonard Cohen, I listened to him a lot. I learned English through that, through the words of the songs, you know. And then at 16, 17, I got introduced to jazz and was drawn to it. And that's when I decided that's what I want to do. I had no
So
idea
yeah,
what was coming.
when did you come to America?
I came to US in 85,
Okay.
so it's almost 40 years. I was 22 years old. and I came to New York to study with Barry. You know, I at that time I was living in Tel Aviv. I was already working as a musician for a few years. I was playing some small jazz gigs because they're not much, especially at that time. There's much more now. And I used to play for weddings. I was in a wedding band, which was a good experience because I got to play Yemenite music, Moroccan music,
Hmm.
Georgian music. Everybody was ethnic that time in Israel. So whatever the event, whoever the ethnic group it is, we had to play their music too. Greek music. So I learned a lot of different things like that. And I saved my money and came to New York. So in Tel Aviv, I was already, getting established. I started having gigs and jazz with good bands. And I came to New York and I was looking for work, and the only work I got was a dishwasher. So I worked as a dishwasher 12 hours a day at a restaurant called Giant, just down the street from Sweet Basil. And it was $3.71 an hour.
West
I
Village.
remember. Yes, right. I used to work 12 hours to make $40, like that.
My dad
But
came to this country when he was about 23. He lived in his car,
mhm,
It's
lived in
just,
his car. Wow.
but
Yes.
there's something about the American dream in that sense. And we're talking about you came to this country 40 years ago, worked as a
Hmm.
dishwasher for $40 a day. Fast forward 40 years later, and look what you're doing in the music. It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's because I wanted to,
Yeah.
not because somebody asked me to do that. And I think that's the great thing about immigrants. We have this drive, this urge, and it's so constructive.
When you came to New York in the 80s, do you remember, like, you must have been, oh, I want to go see so many, like, you must have been running around left and right going to hear music, I would imagine.
The Village Vanguard, for those of the who listeners don't know, there's this tall stairs. You go downstairs to the basement. And at that time, Max Gordon was the owner, and he was still alive. The door would stay open. So you can come and sit on the stairs. So kids, like you don't have money or if you're too young to go drinks, you sit on the stairs and it's the best seat. You're right across from the band stage. And you can sit there the whole set. It was very different. And I remember going to see Kenny Burrell at the Vanguard.
Oh,
And at the Vanguard was $5 to get in. And I was there for the first set. Of course, I sat front row. At that time, he has a record live at the Village Vanguard from the 50s or the early 60s with Richard Davis and Roy Haynes. And I used to transcribe that whole record. And here I am watching him. And the second set, I was the only one in the audience. So the whole second set, I'm listening to Kenny Burrell's quartet, and he's introducing the tunes to me. He's thanking me. It was pretty wild, yeah.
well, how come no one was there except you think? That's crazy.
You know, that's something that a lot of people have to remember. That all those greats, they weren't as popular as now people make them to be. It was very hard for them. And it was Kenny Burrell with a quartet playing a whole set for one person for me.
Wow.
And I remember one time Joe Green, the comedian, or Al Green, the comedian. He was the monster in the grandpa in the monsters,
Okay.
and he was speaking somewhere, and he said, "I remember going to the Three Deuces to hear Art Tatum, and there was only one other person in the audience, and it was Stravinsky." Right?
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
So yes, New York was a lot more accessible. It was a lot of, and Jazzmobile had concerts throughout the summer, and I saw everybody at Jazzmobile.
did you
I
see Barney
saw.
Kessel?
Yes, I did see Barney Castle at the Vanguard also. Yeah,
How was that?
I got to see. It was great. It was amazing. I mean, Barney Castle. Got to talk to him. It was very nice. Yeah, I saw Tal Farlow a lot of times at Zeno's. Saw Jimmy Rainey. I saw Jim Hall many times. Of course, Jim stayed alive. I saw Herb Ellis. I saw many. And when I remember arriving and saying, "Oh, I arrived too late. So many are gone," but not realizing how many are still there. Then later on were gone.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like I mean, it's you saw some of the masters who pioneered this music. It's
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah. And all were humble. All was not like, "Oh, I'm big time," or so and so. No attitude. Very nice to a young musician who's curious. Very open to talk to you, and most of them. I didn't really meet somebody who was rude.
Yeah, I think it's changed a little bit in that sense. There are
Yes, I
certain.
think so. I think so. I think once you introduce money and fame, things get a little, you know. But these guys did not have money and fame. They were just, right there, and they did it because of the music. Their sacrifice and their devotion was just because of the music.
Yeah, I was talking to Ron McClure about Wes, and he just said Wes was always smiling, like he was just a happy guy, and
Wouldn't you smile if you played like that?
exactly.
I
Oh,
played with, I used to play with Frank Gant, the drummer, and he used to play with Wes. And he said, he would just laugh. He would play and laugh. And he would blow you away, what I mean? And he would look at you smiling, and you're like, "Oh my God." Yeah.
yeah. No, Ronnie, this has been such a pleasure to get to know you on the podcast, and I
Yeah.
think
Thanks for having me.
and it's an inspiring story, coming to this country and all you're doing now. So, where can everybody find your website and social media?
RoniBenhur.com, RoniBenhur.com.
Easy
And
enough
over
to
there,
remember.
right.
Easy.
There you can see about my shows, but also about the camps and things that's coming up. I'm in all the streaming things and on the YouTube and all of that. It's so easy to find. And also, there's a lot of classes, workshop that I put on my music masterclass that people can find. So
Beautiful.
you,